Why is music style such a hot topic in the church? Why do we constantly bicker and fight over the hymns versus the contemporary? Why is there so much tension? Well, we're going to talk about this music tension here on this Thrive and Dive episode.
So JP, let's talk about, music in the worship service. You mentioned you were raised in a Presbyterian church, so I'm sure even the worship there was the genre at least. The worship's the same. We were worshiping the same
Correct.
God, regardless of the genre, but the style might have been a little different. So
Yeah.
talk to me about any and all those things I just mentioned.
Yeah. I grew up, like I said, small conservative Presbyterian church. It was hymns and
Hymns and herds.
hymns singing the Psalms, which was cool. Those were a little harder to sing, but it's cool to sing, straight from the Word.
Especially Psalms 119. That must have been a long one.
Yeah.
It's the longest chapter in the Bible.
They were separated a little bit.
Oh,
It wasn't
okay.
like we were singing Psalm 20. It was songs, but they were separated psalms.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah, and we had a piano player, and that was it. On Easter, every now and then, one of the elders would play the trumpet.
Ooh.
So it was cool. Yeah. There wasn't really much beyond that. And again, this is no shade.
Yeah.
If anybody from my old church sees this, there's no shade going on.
Yeah,
It's
just describing how it was done.
Yeah. So that was my only exposure to worship, which was not bad. I did not listen to worship music at all. And I honestly didn't really like it. I grew up listening to, so many different stuff. The Beatles and Queen and all the, all these people.
Yeah.
And
all those pagans.
all
I'm playing.
the sinners, yeah. But I've, as somebody who loved music so much, worship music, and this is going to sound so snobby, because it is.
Yeah.
And I hated that it all sounded the same to me. And hymns too. I
Right.
mean, a lot of hymns use the same melodies from other hymns.
Yeah.
So it's not just a worship music thing, but like almost all the melodies sounded the same. All the chords were exactly, there's like 2 chords.
Yeah.
And it just kind of annoyed me. And they were, it could be 10 minutes long. They're long. I didn't really get exposed to worship music until I went to college in 2019. I went to Asbury University.
Shout out to Asbury.
Yeah. Hey, James's brother goes there now too, and he's rooming with my brother-in-law, which is
crazy.
by coincidence.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I really actually learned to appreciate a lot of things about worship music when I was at school, especially when I joined a worship band. I played acoustic guitar in a worship band 2 out of the 3 years I was there, which was an incredible experience. But there is an element of worship music. I mentioned that they pretty much are all the same chords, and there's like 3 of them. When you're playing a worship song, it's so much easier to worship when the song is not complicated, because you don't have to think, especially since they all use the same chords.
Right.
You can just like close your eyes, and you don't even have to think about what you're playing, and you can just praise. And so I really learned to actually appreciate worship music a lot.
Wow.
And then I interned here summer of 2021, and this was a whole new experience for me. I did not it was not anything I grew up around, and at first, honestly, it was kind of like, oh wow, I'm uncomfortable is not the exact word. It was just new.
Yeah.
So it was a whole new experience, and it was it took time to adjust, but especially after getting to know the people, talking to the volunteers on the worship team, the tech team, you can learn people's heart behind things. Actually, Mike Pickerel and I were just talking about this morning.
Oh wow! Shout out to Mike Pickerel,
Yeah.
one of the elders at our church.
We were just talking about this, and I told him, I was like, I really learned and adjusted to this worship style after getting to know the people, and the experience at Asbury helped too. But yeah, and Pastor Brian kind of touched on this.
Shout out to Pastor Brian,
shout
our
out to
lead
Pastor
pastor. This is just in case no one has context.
Yeah.
Yeah, lead pastor at our church.
Yep.
Yep.
Because he talked about not last week, but a few weeks ago about presence over preference.
Okay. Yeah.
And which I think is huge
Right.
in the church nowadays.
Especially when it comes to music and
correct
worship. Yeah.
music, and even honestly, the technology side of this fits into this too, because lots of people are, they're not into, they don't appreciate haze, or they don't appreciate, too much crazy lighting.
Oh, haze, like the fog.
Yeah, like fog. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lighting, or it's too loud, or there's people that don't want to cross into worship being a concert, which I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. There's
Yeah.
there's definitely a line, because if you lose the corporate aspect of it, it's no longer as worshipful,
authentic,
right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, man, that's a good conversation to have too. Wow.
Yeah.
I think about that.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of
Can we jump into, can we press into that a little bit? What is kind of your take? Because I assume Asbury's was pretty conservative too, right? In terms
Yes.
of they didn't have anything flashy. I mean, look at their
No.
chapel; it's like old school.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
So really, yeah, so Pathway is the most modern, if we put it like that.
Yep.
More cutting edge, if you will. Really,
Yes.
evolving to be a little more flashy, right? Not a
Yep.
bad thing per se.
No,
But
no.
I guess what is your kind of your take on that? Where do we draw the line in terms of, all right, when is it becoming a praise to performance, right? When is it that line being crossed? And obviously, it's hard because you don't know the hearts of everyone on stage.
Right.
I was actually just talking about this with a student on Thrive and Dive that leads our worship at Chapel here at Masters Academy, our school. And you can't know for certain everybody's heart and intentions.
Right.
And we don't want to do the appeal to motive fallacy where we assume, oh, they're just trying to put on a show.
Right.
When in reality, they're just trying to glorify God to the best of their
Yep.
ability. Right. So kind of what's your little bit of your personal JP standard? Not a shot at Pathway, not a shot at Asbury. It's just like, when do you think what's appropriate?
Well, I have visited some pretty large churches. I will not say the name of them.
Yeah.
But there, to me, is a line of, and I've been to a lot of concerts too. Kind of what I said already, that when it becomes to the point where you're kind of a viewer as opposed to the people on stage, and you are kind of connected through the Spirit, right? So like the people on stage are supposed to be leading us to the throne of the Lord.
Exactly.
I visited a church that I did not feel that way. They did a lot of songs that were not very easy to sing along with.
Right.
They were all like basically in-house songs as well.
Like they created them.
Correct. Yeah. Which I don't think there's any. I mean, we do
Right,
in-house songs too.
Yeah.
But the in-house songs that they created were not very easy to sing along with. So
user-friendly.
it's already a new song, and you can't really learn along with the band very quickly.
Yeah.
That
Unless you're
to
a
me,
lyrical genius or good at singing to begin with.
Right, which
yeah.
is not a lot of
Right.
people
Yeah,
in
the
the
average person like
congregation.
me is like,
Yeah.
we're not going to be able to
Yeah.
do that.
So that to me is a line. They're definitely. I really appreciate the technology aspect of this. Our approach to lighting and all that. I do think that there is a line with lighting that is like strobing and all that stuff that can be very distracting. I think we approach lighting very tastefully. We use it, we utilize it, and
You're at Pathway.
yes.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah. And it's almost to the point where Sydney's told me this before. She's like, I don't always notice the lighting, but it's still there, and people who appreciate lighting notice the lighting.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh man, that's really
Exactly.
So, and I'm not saying we do everything perfectly here, and other churches do it wrong.
Sure.
But I do think that that's a line as well. If you utilize technology in a way that goes beyond what most people in the congregation are going to be able to align with, and be present with you, it's too far.
That's good.
Yeah.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of, I had this conversation with a student on Thrive and Dive about how it was kind of like sermon illustrations, like kind of like when is it becoming showy versus actually helping show the point, right? I basically told him, where we agreed that, so using the worship service, the lights and the fog and, the good sound, the speaker, could you lose all of that and still have an authentic worship experience? Absolutely,
100%.
right? But it's us being good stewards of what the Lord has entrusted us. I forget the the passage specifically. I think it's in Matthew. It talks about the talents, right? It's one of my favorite passages in all of Scripture. And it is basically, long story short, look it up. The parable of the talents, servants are entrusted with talents, 1 10, 1 5, 1 1. And the one with 10 multiplies, or with 5, I forget the amount. Basically, the 2 of the servants multiply and are good stewards of what the Lord has given them, and makes an increase, right? And then you got one servant who has 1, and instead of trying to be an entrepreneur and be creative, he just buries the talent and gives back the talent to the master with no interest, right?
Yep.
And basically, how that can correlate with the worship experience is that you've got creative minds like you, Mark, Brandy, April, all these people on staff in the worship department, Christina. And if you were to not use your creative abilities, right, and just kind of sit on your hands and be like, oh, no, we're going to let the Spirit lead. We're not going to put any effort. We're not going to be creative. We're not going to try to be our best, right, or be the best that we can be. In my opinion, that's like a modern day lazy servant that just buried the talent, right?
Yes.
We're gonna make the most of our budget. We're gonna make the most of the technological skills that we have and the lights that we have, so we can create the best experience to the glory of God.
Right.
Right. So I see that as an expression of being a good steward. Yeah, could God use a campfire service, right, with nothing at all? Absolutely. He can use anything. He can use a rock, right? He can use a donkey, right? Well, it's our job to be good stewards and create the best experience possible.
Right.
Not for a show, but because we want to be good stewards.
Right.
And then on top of that, JP, my biggest thing is if the supplement becomes the main course, then that's when I have an issue, right?
Yes.
So we eat protein, we eat meat to sustain our bodies, and I drink protein shakes as a supplement, right, to increase my protein intakes to help build my muscles faster. I'm trying to be big, right?
Yeah.
And but the protein shake can never replace the meal, right? It's an agent that helps me develop protein so that I am as fit as I can be.
Yeah.
So likewise, the lights and the fog, those are supplements. Those aren't the main thing. The main thing is the worship and the voices of the congregation and the music, I would say, right? So if the supplement, which is the fancy stuff, replaces the main thing, which is authentic worship to our glorious Father, then you're being showy. Then it's a concert. And keep the main things, and use the supplements to point our direction and rearrange our direction back to the main thing.
Yeah.
So if it's distracting us from the main thing, then that's what I'd say. But that's where it gets a little murky. Like, when's it becoming a distraction, right?
And that's different preferences.
Exactly, and that's become subjective. And I'm not here to argue subjectively, like with Pastor Randy. I'm going to trust that the Lord is going to put what the Lord wants to put on his heart, because he's our leader in that capacity. I'm going to trust JP. I'm going to trust Mark. I might not like it per se, but that's when we put presence over preference, right?